The Anishinaabe have lived on Turtle Island since time immemorial. We call it Turtle Island because the land was created on the back of a turtle, and North America as we know it resembles the shape of the turtle's back. The ancestors of the Algonquin people were nomadic, moving from place to place to harvest food and supplies throughout the year, visiting seasonal hunting and harvesting grounds. During the summer months, a large population would gather at the confluence of the Ottawa and Gatineau rivers to live, trade tools and supplies, and share stories. On the grounds of Parliament Hill and the shores of the Ottawa River and Gatineau River, including the well-known Lac Limay, many stone tools and fragments have been found dating back to at least 5,000 years and beyond. Kitigan-Zibi and Maniwaki are a main route, and many Anishinaabe camped in this area as they made their way to the large gathering areas in Ottawa and Gatineau. The French and British fought for economic control of North America, the beaver being the source of riches for institutions like the Hudson's Bay Company. Beaver pelts were shipped back to Europe en masse to make felt hats, which were in style at this time and sold for a high price. French explorers and traders arrived in the 1600s, using the Gatineau River, a tributary of the Ottawa River, as a crucial route for the fur trade. In the first half of the 19th century, Algonquins of the mission at Lake of Two Mountains, under the leadership of Chief Puckanawatik, came to the area of the Desert River. Shortly after, in 1832, the Hudson's Bay Company followed them and installed a trading post at the mouth of this river. The trade relations at this time were mutually beneficial. The Oblate Fathers of Mary Immaculate established the Notre Dame du Désert mission in 1849, attracting more settlers to the area. The L'Assomption de Maniwaki Parish was founded in 1851, and the area was named Maniwaki. Chief Puckanawatik travels to Toronto to request land be set aside where his people may settle in peace. His request is granted, and the River Desert Band is established in 1851 and demarcated in 1853. River Desert Band will later be known as Kitigan-Zibi. Many Anishinaabe, from Lake of Two Mountains to Nipissing to Basketong, hear about this area and migrate to live in Kitigan-Zibi. Some of the Algonquins accepted the faith, but many did not. The goal was to settle the Anishinaabe and discourage their nomadic lifestyle. Yet many people would choose to return to their traditional territories to harvest their food and supplies. By 1870, the felt beaver hats fell out of style in Europe, and the beaver trade industry was being replaced by forestry. Lumber would be cut and floated downriver toward mills in Ottawa, where it would be processed and sold. The lumber industry becomes Maniwaki's main economic source. Farmlands across the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe were being distributed by the government, and the Anishinaabe returning to their territories or finding strangers occupying their lands along the Ottawa River valley shed. These changes would lead to many conflicts. The government began seeing Indigenous people as a problem that needed to be solved. In 1867, the British North America Act is passed, granting the government exclusive authority over Indians and lands reserved for Indians. In 1876, the Indian Act is created and grants the government further control on the lives and well-being of the Anishinaabe people. Through the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the government is allowed by law to to arrest Anishinaabe people who are not settling in designated reserves and put them in jail. Each reserve is governed by a representative of the government, known as the Indian agent. The Anishinaabe living on these reserves are not allowed to leave unless given written consent by the agent or be arrested by the RCMP and thrown in jail. Many laws are written into the Indian Act, which suppress the cultural identity of Indigenous people across Canada, including no gathering in groups greater than 10, even on the reserve, no possession of traditional, religious, or ceremonial items, no wearing buckskin or traditional clothing. That's just to name a few. The Indian Act is an all-encompassing legislation dictating land, finances, governance, and even personal status. Although amendments to the Act have been made to relieve some of these more suppressive statutes, the Indian Act exists to this day. The government, still seeing the Indigenous people of Turtle Island as a problem, tasks the church with educating the Indigenous population in order to make them more compliant and align their goals with the goals of the Government of Canada. The residential school system is created. Through laws created in the Indian Act, many children are forcibly taken from their homes and brought hundreds of kilometers away to institutions set up to kill the Indian in the child. The realities of these schools were not education, but subjugation. Experiences vary, but the consensus by the survivors of these institutions is not pleasant. Children were beaten and abused for speaking their own Indigenous languages or practicing prayers and culture. These children were forced to live in deplorable conditions. When the children would return speaking a new language, they could hardly communicate with their old families, and most felt like strangers in their own homes and communities. Over 150,000 children attended these schools. Cavalick Hall in Rankin Inlet was the final school to close its doors in 1997. The deep scars left by the legacy of the church and government has been coined intergenerational trauma. Many problems stem from these traumatic experiences, but slowly the wounds are healing. And Anishinaabe people are stepping into the light and finding solace in the recognition of the past, sharing our stories and educating the broader public to the real history of Turtle Island. Education is the key. People like you watching videos like this to develop a better understanding is the way we move forward. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the TRC, was formally established on June 1, 2008. The commission mandated the documenting of the truth of the residential school system's impact. With testimony from survivors of the residential school establishment, the TRC has been integral in educating and sharing the realities of the legacy Indigenous peoples have been left with. The TRC has listed 94 calls to action to improve the lives of Indigenous people across Canada. The calls to action encompass child welfare, education, language and culture, health, justice, and reconciliation.